Let's get right to the unprecedented performance by Barack Obama last night, who assailed President Trump in his Democratic Convention speech, calling him a threat to democracy and issuing a stark warning to Americans of the dire need to vote him out of office in November. The former president made his poignant plea from the Museum of the American Revolution in Philadelphia, where he was flanked by the text of the U.S. Constitution.
I have sat in the Oval Office with both of the men who are running for president. I never expected that my successor would embrace my vision or continue my policies. I did hope, for the sake of our country, that Donald Trump might show some interest in taking the job seriously, that he might come to feel the weight of the office and discover some reverence for the democracy that had been placed in his care. But he never did. For close to 4 years now, he has shown no interest in putting in the work, no interest in finding common ground, no interest in using the awesome power of his office to help anyone but himself and his friends. No interest in treating the presidency as anything but one more reality show that he can use to get the attention he craves. Donald Trump hasn't grown into the job because he can't. And the consequences of that failure are severe. This president and those in power, those who benefit from keeping things the way they are counting on your cynicism. They know they can't win you over with their policies. So they're hoping to make it as hard as possible for you to vote and to convince you that your vote does not matter. That is how they win. What I know about Joe, what I know about Kamala, is that they actually care about every American. They believe that in a democracy, the right to vote is sacred. They believe that no one, including the president, is above the law, and that no public official, including the president, should use their office to enrich themselves or their supporters. That our ability to work together to solve big problems like a pandemic depend on a fidelity to facts and science and logic, and not just making stuff up. So I'm also asking you to believe in your own ability, to embrace your own responsibility as citizens, to make sure that the basic tenets of our democracy endure. Because that's what's at stake right now. Our democracy.
Jon Meacham, in my estimate, extremely powerful, telling Americans this is a dire time, especially given what's the questions that are happening right now with the Postal Service. What was your takeaway from President Obama's speech? And is there any precedent for something like this?
You know, what's remarkable about President Obama, and I honestly had kind of forgotten it, was how he can combine two of the great human realities. He can argue from reason with a kind of restrained passion, right? I mean, usually people are either really passionate and emotional or they're highly cerebral. This was a fascinating combination of those two tributaries, and it formed a very impressive rhetorical river. And it's rhetorical in the classical sense. Rhetoric isn't supposed to mean just blah, blah, blah. Rhetoric is rooted in action. Words are supposed to lead to action. And he's always believed in the power of language. He's always believed in the power of story. One of the things he'll tell people who might want to run for office is, what's your story? You know, if you're going to replace an existing story, you have to tell a different narrative. And the narrative he gave us in a very restrained, somber speech, totally commensurate with the moment, because it's kind of a restrained and somber moment, was a reminder that we are, in fact, more than the sum of our parts. And I know everybody's talking about how blistering, or whatever the analogy would be, how tough he was on Trump. Really? Was he? I mean, Trump rose to national power by deploying baseless, disproven, racist attacks against this man. I thought, if anything, Obama took a intelligent high road, a wise high road here, and just says what a lot of us think. And that's what great political oratory is about, is can you articulate what we're thinking? Senator Harris did the same thing, too, by the way, by talking about the folks on both sides of the remote learning screen. That was a brilliant device from really from the fireside chat vernacular. You know, FDR always tried to find some way to be in the living room, to be around the radio with people imaginatively. And what Senator Harris did in that image about teachers and students and families struggling was she got in everybody's kitchen, right, when they're struggling to get online to get to class, and the teachers being frustrated by it. So in the net effect of both Senator Harris's speech and President Obama's speech, I think, is just to say, we know this isn't working. You know this isn't working. And we hoped, you know, a lot of folks hoped, I know I did, President Obama just said he did, that, you know, maybe miraculously this carnival barker would actually be transformed by the office. He was not. Instead of being transformed by the office, Donald Trump has attempted to transform the office and the country into something we shouldn't want to be. And here we have a chance in 76 days to fix it. And I think that was the message, and I think it was very effective.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.